I grew up in a family where one side of it was Jewish. And I heard from my grandparents while they were still alive stories of World War II. And I witnessed my grandmother in polite company, and somebody started to speak German, and she started to shake. It was a neurological response. It was an anchor that had been placed there long before. And the story that I heard later regarding this is that when she was younger, she was taken out into the woods by a German soldier who put a gun to her head and was going to execute her. And she spoke French to him at that dire moment. Somehow it touched his heart and he spared her life. It's understandable that you form this association, that her whole family was killed. My entire grandfather's family was also killed in the Holocaust, in the war. That is real tragedy. And yes, there is racism in the United States, and there was even more of it. But what's going on today and the progress that we have made does not belie the narrative that Black Lives Matter and others are trying to preach. That America is inherently a racist place is false. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in pockets. That doesn't mean that I haven't heard from my Black friends that they feel at various times throughout their lives that they faced it. I understand that. And at the same time, we have to deal with today. Much like my grandmother really had nothing to fear from far worse experiences, I think that everybody would grant, than anybody who's dealt with racism in the United States has personally. And she recognized the fact that there was no logical reason for her to be hateful of the German in the party, that she should not seek difference with him or be really scared of him. It makes intellectually little sense. It was a trigger from the past. This German was not guilty of anything, any crime against her on a personal level, and it's unfair to hold him to that standard. When I went to Poland, this is after I had heard that story, and I was in Krakow, and I was touring the old Jewish ghetto. There were 2 Germans in my group. And because of all the stories that I heard, I wonder whether I should be suspicious of them, whether or not I should have enmity in my heart towards them. And I went out with them for a meal after the tour was done. And I have to say they were 2 of the nicest guys ever. And they were very sorry for the German history towards the Jewish people. And I had absolutely, after getting to know them, I realized that my fears and whatever enmity I would have had in my heart would have been completely misplaced towards these individuals. There is no collective guilt for something that anybody has done. Not the Germans that I met, not the German that my grandmother was fearful of in that very moment. You are not guilty just by the color of your skin. This is the dissolution of Martin Luther King's dream.
Because I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
And yet, people are being judged as though they have collective guilt. I got a text from a friend of mine in Long Beach today, and she told me that as she was crossing the road, that 2 Black guys almost ran her down intentionally and then began yelling at her from inside the car. And although she couldn't hear what they said, she was certain it wasn't nice. And as the man next to the driver was laughing riotously. This is what is being fomented. This behavior. These people's minds are being overtaken by this ideological pathogen. We are not guilty on a collective level. No individual is guilty just because of the color of their skin. That goes for Black, that goes for white. And Black people do not want to be treated differently because of their darker skin color. Neither do Mexicans, nor do Asians. We should endeavor to treat everybody equally, as they deserve to be treated as an individual. There are Black people I don't like because they're jerks. There are a lot of Black people I love because they're awesome people, but I judge that on an individual basis. And that's what we should endeavor to do. Drop the collective guilt. Drop the idea that you are guilty because of the color of your skin. Everybody in America is privileged. I've traveled to 60 countries around the world, and I've seen how lucky you are to be born in America, and yet we are trying to tear that down. And it makes no sense to me. It saddens me. Robespierre and the French Revolution would guillotine anybody who was against them. And we are rapidly ascending to those levels of insanity. Drop back from this insane cliff that we're standing over. Just take a step back. You're not guilty because you're black, just because of the color of your skin, nor is anybody, including me, guilty of anything just because of the color of my skin. Nor is anybody who speaks the German language today guilty of anything that their grandparents did, and to try to ascribe guilt to any of us in this circumstance, based solely on the color of the skin, does a disservice to humanity and does a disservice to Martin Luther King's most beautiful speech and oration ever. I too have a dream that America will one day not judge people by the color of the skin, but by the content of their character. I need to echo Martin Luther King so that we remember those words that bound the nation together, that united us, rather than all the hateful, despicable people out there that are trying to separate us. Peace and blessings to everybody out there. Please consider these words. I hope that I've reached somebody. Please share this video to ensure that it might. Peace out.